And hello, one and all, and welcome to my review for tonight's edition of NXT. We're going to be taking a look at the February 3rd edition of NXT, as this episode laid the groundwork for NXT TakeOver Dallas on April 1st, a show that I am very much looking forward to, and a show that I believe has the potential to be better than WrestleMania 32. Just my opinion, but we'll have to wait and see what both brands do with their respective build up to their big shows. But for tonight's episode, looking back on it, I thought it was another solid edition of NXT. I really thought there was some good matches that took place, good character development, carry over some storylines, and it was an hour pace, fast flow compared to what we saw on Monday Night Raw. So I really enjoyed this week's episode of NXT. And with that out of the way, let's take a look at what took place on tonight's episode, because I thought there was a lot that took place that we can talk about. We kicked things up with our opening contest. We had the Vaudevillians take on the Hype Bros. As we all know, the Vaudevillians, they've been off TV for a couple weeks. They've been airing vignettes stating how they're going to be coming back with more of an aggressive side. We're going to be getting that from the Vaudevillians. They went on a recent losing streak, so it makes sense for their characters to come at this perspective saying, we have to change things up. What we were doing wasn't working. It helped us get the titles, but we lost them and we kind of got stuck in a rut. So I like this aggressive side that we saw from the Vaudevillains. It was definitely on full display in this match, and they were able to pick up the victory, which I saw coming. The match was okay. It wasn't the greatest match. It was just a standard tag match, but it was definitely, you could make a note that the Vaudevillains were definitely making sure to display their aggressive side. And this came into effect when Ryder tagged himself back in, and he walked right into the Whirling Dervish. And that was it. 1, 2, 3, and your winners are the Vaudevillains. So, an okay match in my book. Then we had what I really thought was I love when NXT does this. They do these good backstage sit-down interviews. It was Tom Phillips interviewing Carmella. We really got to know more about Carmella. She talked about how her and Bayley are best friends, how she's she's not going to let the title mess up her friendship with Bayley. Carmella also talked about how she's wrestling Emma, and how she's going to really prove herself by beating Emma, and that will further help her build momentum heading into her NXT Women's Championship match, which will be taking place against Bayley on next week's episode of NXT. Looking very much forward to that. I think they can have a really good match. This was a good interview. Really got to know more about Carmella. Apparently her father wrestled for the WWF back in the day. He also did some MMA. So I learned that Carmella is a second generation wrestler. So that was cool to learn. And it was a good interview. So all in all, I enjoyed this. Then we had Carmella versus Emma. Emma, dominated a good, portion of this match, but eventually, Carmella was finally able to, get out of the trouble that Emma was putting her in. Emma was able to reverse out of into a Thez press later into the match after Carmella was able to reverse out of Emma's attempted slam and into a Thez press, and it looked like Carmella was going to try and hit her finisher on Emma, but Emma threw Carmella into the corner. Emma hits a butterfly suplex, and eventually, out of this reversal from Carmella, she is able to hit the backslide for the win to help build momentum for her upcoming match against Bayley next week on next week's episode of NXT. So it was the smart decision to have Carmella win this match, make her look strong heading into her title match. Looking forward to that. I think her and Bayley, like I said, can have a really good match. This match between her and Emma wasn't bad. It definitely picked up towards the end after Carmella was finally able to get some offense in. So I enjoyed it. Then we had a backstage interview. It was going to be announced that William Regal would make his decision after last week's controversy, in which Sami Zayn and Samoa Joe both made Baron Corbin tap out. They go to a backstage interview with Sami Zayn. Basically, he says he should have been declared the number one contender because he had his submission locked in before Samoa Joe. Then I like this. They cut to this another backstage interview. They want to talk to Joe. Joe ain't having it. He just pretty much blows off the interview. Doesn't even say a word, and he's gone. So really, I love Samoa Joe as a heel. I think he's killing it right now on NXT. Definitely the top heel on the brand. Then we had Enzo Amore and Colin Cassidy come out. Great crowd reaction for them. And they pretty much destroyed some local talent. It wasn't much of a match. It was more just to display the intensity and aggression that they are displaying inside the ring. They were able to get the victory after hitting Air Enzo. Colin Cassidy launched Enzo up. They get the 3 count. And they cut a really, really good, passionate promo about how they are still coming for those tag team titles, and they want to take them from Dash and Dawson. I really like when Enzo and Cass display this aggression. I think, I like when they're funny and joke around, but they can also, just like that, turn it around and be very serious. So, what I hope they do, I would like to see a triple threat match at TakeOver Dallas between Dash and Dawson, the American Alpha, and Enzo and Big Cass. I think you put all those teams together, you could have a really good match on hand for TakeOver Dallas. But we'll see what they have. But Enzo and Big Cass pick up the win, and they continue to build momentum heading into NXT TakeOver Dallas. Then we had a backstage interview with Apollo Crews talking about how, his title shot that he had against Finn Balor several months ago was taken from him by Baron Corbin. But he thinks that he'll prove himself in the ring tonight against the champion in his non-title match versus Finn Balor. So we're building that. Then we have William Regal. He's about to make his announcement in his office backstage. Baron Corbin runs in. He's like, don't I deserve another opportunity? And Regal's like, well, no, you don't, because you tapped out. So Corbin stormed off. He was pissed. And then Regal announced that there will be a match between Samoa Joe and Sami Zayn to determine who the new number one contender will be for Finn Balor's NXT Championship. Can't wait for that match. Should be a really good match. Joe and Zayn, they should just be able to go in there and tear it up. So I'm looking forward to that match. Not sure if it's going to take place. It'll probably take place in 2 weeks. That's what I'm thinking. So we have that to look forward to. Then we had Asuka versus Santana Garrett. I thought this was it would be a pretty good match. It wasn't the longest match, but Asuka went in there and she dominated for the most part. But Garrett was able to actually get in some offense on Asuka, so that was nice to see. I like what she had to offer in the ring. It was a really nice part where Asuka was hit with a side Russian leg sweep by Garrett. So that was a surprising part. She got a 2 count, so it was a close 2 count, to a 3 count, but Asuka kicked out. And eventually Asuka would hit her with the flying cross arm breaker, and Asuka was able to transition that into the Asuka lock, and before you know it, she makes Garrett tap out. So a good showing from Garrett, but Asuka, dominated her in the end. And hopefully we eventually get Asuka versus Bayley for the NXT Women's Championship. I think that's the route they're going to go, and that would be the match that I would book at NXT TakeOver Dallas. That is a match I've been waiting to see for a long, long time, and it could be one hell of a match indeed. So Asuka looked good, and so did Garrett. Then finally we had our main event of the evening. It was Finn Balor versus Apollo Crews. Very good match. Match started off slow. There were a lot of side headlocks. In the early going, Balor was trying to keep Crews grounded, which makes sense. A guy of his stature, and Balor being smart, you want to keep him off his feet. But eventually the match was able to get going and pick up. And when it did, it was a really good match. The one part of the match I liked was when Balor was on the outside of the rope, and Corbin hit him with I believe it was an enziguri to the back of the head. So that was a really, really good shot. Really nice move there. And then towards the end of the match, it looked like Cruz was going to, hit his the backstanding moonsault, but Balor was able to counter out of it, and then he goes up to the top rope and hits the coup de grace, and after that, Balor picks up Cruz and hits him with another signature move of his, the Bloody Sunday, to pick up the victory. So there were a lot of good spots in this match. It was a good match once it finally picked up after the early going with a lot of headlocks to kick off the match. But once it hit its stride, and it was a good main event match to cap off this week's edition of NXT. And after the match, Balor and Cruz display a sign of friendship. They shake hands. So overall, a good episode of NXT. Like I said, there was a lot of build. You could see them laying the groundwork for NXT TakeOver Dallas. If I had to grade this show, I'd give it a B+. A solid B+. Enjoyed it from start to finish. And if you haven't watched NXT yet, definitely check it out, because it is really, really good on a week-to-week basis. So those are my thoughts on this week's edition of NXT. Let me know down in the comment section below what you guys thought of NXT. And yeah, please click that like and subscribe button for more video content coming to this channel soon. Thank you all for watching. And with that, I will see you on the other side. Peace.